On this episode of Locked On Canadiens, Patty Laine makes his Montreal Canadiens debut, and we all lived happily ever after.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to episode 1197 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports the show and ensures you do not miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian, and I am joined by Laura Saba. Laura, we have just watched the Patty Laine era begin in Montreal. Could it have begun any other way than how it did with a goal from one Patty Laine?
Honestly, you couldn't have scripted it better. Him being in the starting lineup. Obviously, we talked about yesterday, which line do they put him on? They put him on the quote-unquote second line. They started him in the game. Very, very emotional moment. And then him scoring, it was poetic. It had to happen that way. I did worry a little bit because in his first shift, he seemed a little bit hesitant. And it definitely looked hesitant. But then as the game went on, it looked like he hadn't missed a step. I was very, very pleased, obviously, with that outcome. Lots of storylines in this game that we're going to get into, but the Patty Laine era has begun in earnest in Montreal, and I could not be more excited.
It's the best. We'll get into that. We're going to talk about his entrance to the Montreal Canadiens and the rest of that game in our first segment. We've been getting a lot of questions about Mike Matheson, who we mysteriously did not talk about on Monday's episode, even after a pretty rough showing over the weekend. It's a half-hour show, folks. We try to fit everything in that we can. So we will talk about Mike Matheson because that's what the folks want to hear. And then I want to talk about Arber Xhekaj, who's been putting together some really strong performances. His one against the Islanders might be his best of the bunch so far. But we'll start with where this game truly started for me, which is on the power play in the second period. Patty Laine in the Cole Caulfield spot on the half wall. Looks like they're going to rotate. They're not going to stick in the same spot all the time. He receives a puck from the top of the point. He kind of dusts the puck off, and then he fires a patented Patty Laine wrist shot that rings off the bar and goes in, and that place erupted. I got a little emotional. I will not lie to you. I think it was one of the coolest moments, if not the coolest moment of the season so far, was seeing Patty Laine come back from the injuries and his the issues that he's dealt with his mental health, which we can all relate to in one way, shape, or form. It was the redemption arc we do not get enough of in this sport. We are oftentimes spoon-fed other bad redemption arcs. This is a guy and a place and a time in a city that needed this moment, and it was really, really, really cool that they got something like that on just a random Tuesday night in December. Right? It's not often that happens. Laura, what else are you feeling in that moment of Laine's very triumphant return to form?
I think it ushers in an era of excitement, honestly, for the fans. It does feel like he brings everything up a notch, right? He improves everything. He improves their chances of winning games. And yes, there were a lot of issues. We're going to talk about them. Players being good, players being bad, players being mediocre. But I think that having Patty Laine at least guarantees that we'll have moments to be excited about. We'll have shots that we can, that almost went in. We'll have reasons to be on the edge of our seat again. And I think that's really, really important for this Canadiens fan base who, other than that, like, what are we going to be watching night in and night out? The team getting hemmed into their defensive zone, which is great that it didn't happen for 6 straight minutes against the New York Islanders tonight, which is a thing that actually did happen earlier this season. But I think
I was there. Saw it.
I think Patty Laine for me symbolizes possibility.
Yeah, I think we talked about it on the last episode. I sort of jokingly said the Canadian season starts on Tuesday because this is the Montreal Canadiens as they were designed. This was the team that we were expecting to see, and we finally got it. Was it perfect? No. No, it wasn't, because even with Patty Laine, we knew this wasn't a perfect team, but we were expecting a step, right? Um, I, I think that it was obvious to me, at least, that as the game went on, he slowed down, and which is entirely within reason. And I mean, he mentioned it in the second intermission, his interview with Kenzie Lalonde of TSN. He basically said that his legs felt like jelly, like he just couldn't move, which is like, of course, he hasn't played a professional hockey game at the pace of an NHL regular season game in over a year. So
Very normal.
very normal. And even without his legs going at full speed, the hands were so good. His vision on his playmaking was so good. The shot was so good. We talked about last episode the questions that I write at the top of my notes. I in this one said I wanted to know what percentage of Patty Laine are we going to get and how big of a difference will it make? Maybe we got 50%, 65% of Patty Laine, but it made all the difference because like it was very clear to me that this team was kind of just waiting for that moment, waiting for
Yeah,
him to have that moment. And we got it. It's very rare in sports where that happens. So Canadiens fans should walk a little lighter on Wednesday, knowing that we got a really cool moment, right? That's why we watch this game, right? Is for these moments. So
absolutely.
Montreal is undefeated in the Patty Laine era. That's all that really matters right now, right? They are winning more games than they lose, which is all they want to do.
Correct.
And I hope we don't play the Islanders ever again. I'm tired of these overtime games. 3-on-3 still bad. I stand by that. I do not like
Mhm.
it. Before we got to 3-on-3, though, I did want to talk about the penalty that was rescinded. Caden Gooley was high sticked by Maxim Siplikov of the New York Islanders. Mike Matheson lifted Siplikov's stick, which he was very carelessly holding, obviously, because it flew right into Caden Gooley's face, cut him, and they were able to. They called the penalty, they called the high stick, but because it was a double minor, because he was cut, they were allowed to review it. I don't believe they can review it in the case of a single minor, and I'll read the rules because I think it's interesting what they ended up going with. A double minor penalty when a player carries or holds any part of his stick above his shoulders and makes contact with his opponent's neck, face, or head so that an injury results in the manner of drawing blood or otherwise, the referee shall assess a double minor penalty. Referees making this call have the option, but not the obligation, to review video of the play for the purpose of confirming or not their original call on the ice, and in particular, whether the stick causing the apparent injury was actually the stick of the player being penalized. Such reviews will be conducted exclusively by the referees. Really, the rest of it just goes into the process of reviewing it. Now, I don't know about you, Laura, but it definitely still looked like Siplikov's stick. And
Yeah.
there's nothing in that rule that says, unless it's lifted by an opponent, it seems like they kind of just made it up.
It did. And also like the review too. I don't see this being reviewed very often. How many times have we seen this happen where a player gets a penalty and it wasn't even him that did the high sticking, there was just blood and he happened to be around, right? They don't review those. Why are they reviewing this? And so that was a little bit annoying. And I don't think it's like, oh, that's against the Canadians or whatever. I just think that referees are inexplicable, and then somebody needs to rein in that like insane bad choice making. But I just it doesn't matter because there's no, like there's a rule called intent to blow. And there's
Yeah.
no rule called intent to high stick through the player through the stick of your opponent. It just like it does not come down to intent. I don't care what people say. I don't
Yeah.
care. Mike Matheson was probably being careless. That's fine. But there's absolutely nothing in the rule book that says that they need to rescind the penalty
Yeah.
because Mike Matheson happened to be careless at that same moment. Because most of the time, when you're high sticking an opponent and drawing blood, let's be honest, most of the time it's carelessness. It's not intentional. You're not going and cross checking them in the
Yeah.
face. It's you're just not paying attention. You're being careless, and somebody is getting injured. So this happened the same way. It's the exact same way. So I don't understand why intention is being brought into it by like defenders of this rule, because it seems so stupid.
Yeah, if Matheson hit Siplikov and Siplikov's stick went into Gooley's face, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up was because in this game and the last time they played the Islanders, whenever the Canadiens scored a power play goal, it ended the power play for the night. They did not get another one. The first game in Long Island, they got one power play. It lasted 8 seconds, and they scored on it because the Islanders' power penalty kill is not very good. And in this one, they got 2. The second one was where Laine scored, and they never got another one. And it seemed like they were going to get another one. But it's crazy to me how often in the National Hockey League you get a power play, and if you score, it's the last one you get.
Yeah, because they have to even it out.
Well, they have to even it out, or the referees feel like they're making too much of a difference in the game. It's like, well, I called that penalty, so there's blood on my hands now. Like, that's not how this works, but it's always how it feels. And the optics of this matter. Like, it's weird that the Canadiens got 2 power plays in this one, scored on their second power play, and never saw the ice again. That just shouldn't happen. That's not how hockey works. Like, we saw it with our eyes. It's not how it works. But anyway, we do have to move on from this segment. When we come back, we're going to talk about Mike Matheson, as folks have been asking. And I think we all need to chill a little bit on Mike Matheson, which has been a common refrain on this show. But we'll hit the second verse of that in just a minute. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. I'll say that again. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we are back. It seems weird to get through that segment without mentioning Nick Suzuki scored the overtime winner against the New York Islanders, and Montreal won by a score of 2-1.
I did want to bring that up because we criticized Nick Suzuki all last month, and then who was the Molson Cup winner for the month? It was Nick Suzuki.
And deservedly so.
Our standards for Nick Suzuki are just really high, but, he lives up to them. And Ian, you were about to make a point, and I know the point you were going to make, so go ahead and do it. But this time, Connor, remember, it was Ian, not me.
Yeah, the point I was going to make was I thought Nick Suzuki wasn't very good in this game, and then it didn't matter because he scored the game-winning goal. The first line struggled a little bit, I'll say that, but I think the same reason that I expect more from Nick Suzuki is why I expect so much more of Mike Matheson. And it's why we all expect so much more from Mike Matheson. The game against Boston was one to just throw in the dumpster and forget it happened for Mike Matheson. I think he recovered well. His game against the Islanders was really good. What are your thoughts on the criticism of Mike Matheson and how it seems like he is sort of a lightning rod for criticism? Yes, he makes mistakes, but it seems like there's no one this fan base loves going after more than him. I don't know if that's just the way that I feel about it, but it's what it seems like.
Well, if you talk to our good friend Kay, she would say that it's like that about Justin Barron. But Justin Barron doesn't factor as much as Mike Matheson, right? So, yes, you and I are pretty hard on Justin Barron. Yes, she absolutely disagrees with us, and that's fine. But with Mike Matheson, it just seems like it's just the number of minutes that he plays and the assignments that he gets. They're just much more important than almost any other defenseman on this team. Sometimes more than any other defenseman on this team. Like, that's just the way it is. So when you're putting him in that spot, which I like to call the Markov spot, right? You got to play like Markov, and he can't do that, which is fine. It's not his ability, and it's not what this team needs at this moment, right? They're still in a rebuild. If they're contending and we're still talking about Mike Matheson being the number 1 defenseman on this team playing the most minutes, I'd be a little bit worried. And
that would mean some things went wrong, right? That would mean some things along the way did not work out the way that they should have.
Exactly. Something's wrong with the drafting or development portion of this team, right? So for us to be demanding that of Mike Matheson is unfair because it's not what he's able to do. And it's also not what this team needs at this moment. Like, it's not making or breaking this team. It's not ruining their chances of making the playoffs. It's not, making them into a non-contender or anything like that. The Canadiens are doing that collectively. It's a team effort to not be good. So with Mike Matheson, I think the expectations are just too much. And it's not to say that he does not play badly in some games. Like he had a rough weekend. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I think both of us talked about this is not the first time we bring this up. This is not the first time we use this. It's not a defense. It's just a reason. He's playing through something.
Yeah.
Right.
He's
And when
definitely banged up.
yeah, and when you're banged up and also playing the most or second most or that number of minutes as a defenseman, it's not going to go well for you. And we've seen this before. And if you're familiar with his game in Pittsburgh, if you're familiar with his game in Florida, he has inconsistent moments. He'll have bunches of games where he's great. He'll have a few games where he's not great. And the thing is, the games where he's good and he's valuable and he provides, for whatever reason, they're more often or more frequent than the bad games, but we always fixate on the bad games. The good plays he makes are, let's say, 90% of his game, and then 10% is mistakes. We fixate on the mistakes. And again, I'm not defending his performance against Boston. That's not what's going on. I'm just saying is that we are too critical. We rush to be too critical of Mike Matheson, asking him for things he's not capable of. And we're not that same level of harsh with any other defenseman. I mean, like, if we were going to be talking about players who are playing assignments they shouldn't, why not talk about David Savard for 20 minutes, right? Why? Like, it's just because Mike Matheson's playing more, right? And again, this is not a knock on David Savard. Like, both of them, they're doing things, they're being asked to do things that are beyond their capability, their age, their current, like health status. And I find that it's so unfair because there's so many other things we could be criticizing, and we just fixate on Mike Matheson. And I don't know what it is. People want him off, but they want him traded so that somebody else can get an opportunity. But you tell me, what player in this organization has proven that they're ready for that responsibility? What player? Okay, we saw, like, everybody keeps arguing with me about Logan Mailloux being, he should be number one. We saw that, right? He's doing great in the AHL. He's not able to translate it to the NHL level. It's just not happening, right? Justin Barron, okay, as much as you want to defend him, like, this guy's like, he's not a fit on this team, right? You look at Lane Hudson, that's not what the assignment should be for Lane Hudson, right?
Not
You
at
look
20.
at Caden, exactly. You look at Caden Gooley, and it's like, oh, all right, great. Who's going to play with Caden Gooley?
Yeah.
Move him to the
Also,
correct
Caden
spot.
Gooley.
Yeah.
Just two Goolies on one pair.
Yeah. There you go. We can't clone that guy, right? So, and again, he made a huge mistake today on that Islander goal. But and again, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Mike Matheson.
Right. So
I think it's just unfair. We are unfair as a society. We are unfair to Mike Matheson.
I agree. I think there's a few things I want to point out here. One, your point about, well, they want him gone. Okay, who takes those minutes? We've seen this team without Mike Matheson. It's not pretty. Like, it's not good. They don't have a Mike Matheson replacement ready. And I also think over the last 3 games, including the one against the Islanders, I think he's hit 4 goalposts. Can you imagine the different story we're talking about if he had 2? He had 2 against Boston. He had 1. Did he have 2 tonight against the Islanders?
Yeah.
And I think he had 1 against the Rangers. Yeah.
If one went in each game.
Yeah, if half of those went in, we're talking about Mike Matheson like he's a Norris Trophy winner. Like, it's crazy how hockey is a game of inches. Just about every sport played at this level is a game of inches. And look, a lot of the times it's the decision making. In Boston, there were 2 huge decisions that Mike Matheson made that were very poor, both of them on special teams. One, on the power play, he passed it back to where he said he knew Mike Matheson would be playing, which was the top of the umbrella, but then he realized he's Mike Matheson and he had just handed the puck to the Boston Bruins. And the second was shorthanded. They came in on a rush. They had a 3-on-2. He had the puck on the boards and he just said, I'm just going to rim it around the boards to my other D partner. Oh, wait, we're shorthanded. Now the Bruins have a 3-on-1 going the other way. And I think the injuries do play into that. Like, you ever have like a hangnail or like something, like you stubbed your toe and now you have to just go about your life. And you have to do things, and all the time you're just thinking about that hangnail or that stubbed toe. It's that, but he might have a sprain or something.
Yeah.
It's probably they're not sitting him from practice or pulling him out of games for a stubbed toe. He's dealing with something, and that matters. I think that we need to allow this to exist in the context that we know exists around it, and that is that we know he's dealing with something. He knows that he's not good. He said that the game against Boston was probably the worst game of his career, and Marty St. Louis did not disagree with him. It's obvious, and I think he stepped up big against the Islanders. I thought he played really well. This team, if they lose Mike Matheson for an extended period of time, knock on wood, I hope that does not happen. Folks will see how important he is. I think that's the kind of player he is. When he does the right thing, sometimes you won't even know that he's done anything at all. But when he makes a mistake, we all know it's him.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate.
It's like how we tried to trade Jeff Petrie for, what was it, 8 years, 7 years he was here?
Yeah, him. We traded Placanitz every 20 minutes. It felt like while he was here. It's good company to be in. Jeff Petrie and Thomas Placanitz, both very good Montreal Canadiens. So, all right, we'll leave that Mike Matheson defense in the second segment here, and we'll probably bring it up many times throughout the next couple years while he's still in Montreal. But we will move on to another defenseman who I think has been putting together a really strong stretch of games in one Arber Xhekaj, and we'll get into that in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. It's so fun and simple to use, you'll really enjoy playing. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, Laura, I'm usually a numbers guy on this show. That won't change. However, I think this segment belongs directly to the eye test. I think
Wait,
Arber
can we say a
Xhekaj,
number real quick first?
yes, as long as it's a funny number. Can you say is it funny?
It's not funny. No, I just wanted to say
Well, I'll let
that
that slide.
that Lane Hudson is tied for third in rookie scoring at the moment.
He's on a 4-game point streak too.
Yeah.
He's slowly picking up points. Power play 1, he's out there instead of Mike Matheson. Sorry, Mike. Power play 2 looked better with Mike Matheson on it too. So
there you go. Maybe that's where the fit is.
Yeah, him and Kirby Dach maybe can earn their way back up to power play 1, but for now it's a pretty good fit. Sticking with that blue line, Arber Xhekaj has been putting together a bunch of games where he should be very, very proud of his performance. He's been really, really good.
I agree.
He seems to know where the line is physically. He did take a tripping penalty against the Islanders. However, it was either a 2-minute power play where the Islanders have the second worst power play in the league, or you're giving a breakaway to the Islanders. I don't think he's making that kind of decision in the moment, but it's a decision you can live with, knowing how bad the Islanders power play is.
It turns out he had the holistic view of that.
He had a full brain blast in that moment, and he just realized I should just trip him. That's a way better play in this moment in time. What about Arber Xhekaj's game has stood out to you that maybe comparing him to what we saw in the preseason? Since we're talking about Patty Laine, that's the last time we saw him. Arber Xhekaj in the preseason was a different guy.
Yeah, control. I think he's in control of his game. And I think it goes with confidence. And so we saw him in the preseason. And again, we hate Arber Xhekaj on this show, as you know. We detest him. All we do is rip into him. And we're crazy. We're wrong.
And Marty hates him too. Remember that? Marty hates him because he scratched him. Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing is when you're playing with confidence and you're not coming from a place where you're trying to prove yourself. And I think that's where Arber Xhekaj kind of went wrong. Like he did have seasons under his belt. He wasn't a rookie, right? And so he came in trying to do too much, lost his head, lost control, and then was trying to contribute by getting physical in the wrong moments. And the thing is, like, we don't ever want Arber Xhekaj to stop being physical We just want him to pick the right spots and do it in the right way. And I think that that's what he's been doing specifically in the last, I don't know, quite a long stretch of games. In fact, we've been pretty happy with him for a while, is that he's controlling himself. He's making better decisions on the ice. He's remembering what he brings that is not just gratuitous violence. And again, it's not like we're against him being physical. It's just that he needs to do it in the right moments. And I'm just seeing that he's playing a lot calmer, but still continuing to be threatening to the opponent. He's still scaring the opponent, right? And so I think that's really what you want. You want that intensity, but you want it in such a way where you can tell he can unleash it when necessary, but keep it in check when not.
Yeah. I control is absolutely the way that I would see how he's improved as a player. Not only in the physical sense where, he needs to control his temper, his anger. I think that a lot of that's true, and it's something that he has been able to do. He's been able to pick his spots better. It was really tough in the preseason for him to pick his spots because it seemed like every 20 minutes someone was doing something stupid, and he was just always matching the energy that was on the ice. But I think he's also controlling just how he sees the ice in front of him. He's what I've noticed more, at least in the last 2 games, is he's decided to play a little bit more offensively. He's got a good shot, both a wrist shot and a slap shot. Very good. I think at one point in the game, he might have finished the game leading them in shots, but at one point he was leading the Canadiens with 4 shots on goal. That's, if we were getting that kind of, offensive, not production, but offensive chance generation from a defenseman like Arber Xhekaj, you're generally doing things pretty well.
Yeah.
I think that if we're seeing that evolution of his game, it really means he's left a lot of the other stuff behind him. And the main criticism we had of him in the preseason was that we didn't get to see him.
Yeah.
He kept getting tossed, and it was to the point we were criticizing not him, just the situation of, we need to see him play to see where he fits on this team.
Right.
And wouldn't you know it, once he started playing, we found out where he fits.
And the thing is, he can't be taking himself out of the game now because the Canadiens have come to rely on him and
They
on
need
that
him.
pairing. And he's bringing good things. Also, I said third with Lane Hutson. He's not tied for third. He is now second.
Let's go.
He's second in rookie scoring. I'm so sorry.
He's not even playing right now, and he's moving up the rankings. He's moving up.
That's up. Yeah, in the last 5 minutes. I don't know what went over my brain. I think I was looking at the pre, and then I just didn't continue the thought. I'm so sorry. And then I just while you were talking, I was like, oh no, I need to go check what I said. Sorry, Lane Hutson.
We hate him too now.
Points. Yes, we hate
Lane Hutson.
Why does Laura hate Lane Hutson? She said he can't take Mike Matheson's spot, and she said he was tied for third when he's actually second in scoring. He broke out of that with a point tonight. And so, okay, back to Arber Xhekaj. I'm so sorry. There was something too. I just want to say, Jaden Struble, I feel has started to get unfairly penalized. I don't know if it's just me, because it's not like he did do it. It's not like he didn't. It's not like he didn't do it. It's just that most of the time players get the benefit of the doubt in a situation where they do exactly what Jaden Struble did. I was very upset about that. And also, I don't understand what it is with the refs and Josh Anderson, but I think he's looking particularly handsome these days. So that might be the problem.
Jealousy.
It's jealousy. But yeah, I'm not I think they've removed their focus. The officials have removed their focus from Arber Xhekaj because they're all right, somebody talked to him and we're not going to be able to get easy penalties out of this guy. So let's focus on Jaden Struble instead. And that's the thing. Again, he did it. I'm not saying he didn't do it. I'm just saying most of the time people get the benefit of the doubt. So the way that he's getting officiated, it feels a little bit too, he's a little bit too scrutinized.
Yeah. The play that you're talking about with Struble is a type of interference play that we see probably 5 or 6 times a night.
Yeah.
And the egregious ones get called. I think he got called because the guy fell over. I think that's what happened. I think because he's really strong, because we see that play all the time. If you just kind of stand him up and you don't let him pass, they're not going to call it. But Jaden Struble is very strong and just threw that guy to the ice. So that's probably what it gets called. Yeah. Maybe, and I think maybe the Josh Anderson thing might be broken because speaking of broken, he slashed a stick in half late in the third period, and it was a very obvious slashing penalty that these guys just decided not to call.
Yeah.
So maybe we're past that. Maybe they were just done calling penalties because the second they got a chance to call one, they took it off the books for no reason. So like if we're trying to figure out officiating, it's an exercise in futility. We'll never figure it out.
Trying to figure out goaltender interference. Like
yeah, which I mean, thankfully we haven't had one of those in a while. Yeah, exactly. That's the last thing we need is VAR in the National Hockey League. All right, we're gonna wrap there. We're gonna get into our trivia really quick. Catch you up on yesterday's question. In Laine's lone game in the short-lived North Division, it was also his last game with the Winnipeg Jets. He had 2 goals and an assist, including the overtime winner against which divisional opponent? Laura, you have the answer?
It is the Calgary Flames.
It is. It is the Calgary Flames, and that was I believe, the last of the games that the coward Mark Scheifele was suspended for his hit on Jake Evans. We will always bring that up because the coward Mark Scheifele needs to hear it. And I know he listens to this show, Mark, the coward Scheifele.
Yes.
Anyway, we move on to the coward. Exactly. Scott, those are for you. I hope you enjoyed that. Today's question: who had the last overtime winner for the Montreal Canadiens over the New York Islanders? It was in 2023. Who had the last overtime winner for your Montreal Canadiens over the New York Islanders? If you have the answer, put it in the comments below. On YouTube, we'll pin whoever gets it right and mention you on the next episode of the show. But that's going to do it for us today on this one. Thanks so much for tuning in and for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, head on over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey. I'm a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We've fully made the jump to Blue Sky. Locked On Canadiens there. Laura's at The Active Stick. I'm at Maybe It's Ian. We're also on TikTok at Locked On Canadiens there. Instagram, Locked On Canadiens there. Gmail, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. The synergy is real. You can find us. You can share us. Share our posts, share our handles far and wide. Try to build this pirate ship up as big as we can. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys tomorrow.